It was 2:07 a.m., and a faint rustling sound jolted me awake. I stretched a hand across the custom king-size bed, only to meet cold, empty linen. Ethan Carter was gone. All sleep evaporated instantly. I padded barefoot across the cream wool area rug toward the floor-to-ceiling balcony sliding doors. Sheer ivory drapes covered the glass, with a thin vertical slit left ajar, spilling a pale silver stream of moonlight into our brand-new bridal suite. I held my breath, bent low, and peeked through that narrow crack. What I saw shattered every dream I'd clung to for 3 long years. Out on the private balcony, 2 bodies clung tightly together. My brand-new husband, Ethan, had a woman pressed flush against the iron balcony railing, one hand wrapped around her waist, the other cupping the back of her head as he kissed her with wild, unrestrained hunger. Night wind tangled her dark curls and the hem of her tight burgundy slip dress, molding her frame against his chest. She tilted her chin up to meet his lips, a smug, taunting smirk tugging at her mouth the whole time. I knew exactly who she was, Chloe Bennett. I'd stumbled across photos of her on Ethan's old work phone months prior, and he'd brushed her off as a distant college cousin. Stupid, lovesick me hadn't questioned it for a second. Now this so-called cousin was inside our luxury penthouse, our wedding home, making out with my husband on our balcony, just a thin sheet of glass separating their secret affair from my hiding spot. My entire body locked up, blood turning to ice in my veins. After minutes of relentless kissing, Chloe pulled back slightly, her fingers brushing Ethan's jaw in a soft, whiny caress. Her voice carried over the quiet night air, sweet and bitter all at once. "You finally worked up the nerve to sneak me in tonight? You spent all day putting on the perfect devoted husband act, saying you couldn't let me show my face." Ethan let out a low, indulgent laugh, lifting her hand to press a kiss to her knuckles. The tenderness in his tone was something I'd never once received, even after 3 years of dating and a fairy tale wedding. I couldn't stand it anymore. Pretending to adore her all day, sharing a bed with her every night, it's exhausting. Only holding you makes this hollow charade feel bearable. He glanced sideways toward our bedroom, his gaze cold and dismissive, like he was talking about a disposable household object. "She sleeps like a rock, won't stir for anything. Even if she woke up, that hopeless romantic would swallow any lie I feed her without a second thought." Chloe giggled, rising on her tiptoes to whisper something in his ear. Ethan's grin widened, and he pulled her flush against his torso, resting his forehead against hers. His voice was soft, but every word cut deeper than a blade. "Just give me a little more time, baby. Once I've fully tapped into the Hale family's corporate connections and secured my footing in high society, I'll file for divorce and dump Clara without a second glance. This marriage is nothing but a ladder to climb the social ladder. I've never loved her, not even for a second. You're the only person I've ever wanted." He spoke the words with such sincere ease, as if reciting a plain fact. Chloe melted into his chest, arms coiled around his torso, completely content. I stood frozen behind the curtain, surrounded by every trace of our wedding celebration. Ivory silk linens, monogrammed satin throw pillows, gilded mirror garlands strung with baby's breath, crystal candle holders scattered across every surface. I dug my fingernails hard into my palms, but the sharp pain couldn't break through the numb, cold wrapping around my heart. 3 hours earlier, he'd walked me down the church aisle, gripped my hands tight in front of hundreds of wealthy guests, and sworn before the officiant that he'd love, honor, and cherish me for the rest of our lives. I cried happy tears, convinced I'd landed the luckiest woman alive. I'd been the only audience to his elaborate performance. He'd married me out of cold calculation. Every soft gesture, every thoughtful compliment, every gentle compromise had been a carefully crafted ploy to worm his way into my family's fortune and influence. The audacity to bring his secret lover into our penthouse on our wedding night, to flaunt their affair right outside my bedroom window, was unthinkable. A gust of wind stirred the drapes, and Chloe's head snapped toward my hidden slit. A thin, cruel smile curled her lips, She'd spotted me watching, and she didn't panic for a single moment. Instead, she looped both arms around Ethan's neck and pressed another deep kiss to his mouth, her eyes locking directly onto mine over his shoulder, oozing unmasked triumph. At that instant, the last flicker of warmth inside me died out, replaced by bone-deep cold and razor-sharp clarity. I didn't rush out screaming. I didn't throw a dramatic fit or burst into hysterics. I slowly unclenched my bleeding palms, stepped backward, and vanished fully into the shadowed corner of the bedroom. Fine. If they dared parade their affair directly in front of my eyes, I wouldn't just stand by and watch. Tomorrow morning, I'd remain the gentle, understanding Clara Hale, cook his favorite breakfast, accompany him to corporate mixers, smile and laugh at every fake sweet comment he tossed my way. But every smile would be a mask, every kind word a performance. They want to play this manipulative game? I'd play along. I'd wait until they reached the peak of their fake success, until Ethan thought he'd completely stolen my family's power and wealth, then drag both of them down to ruin. I'd make sure they lost everything: reputations, careers, social standing, every penny they'd schemed to steal from me. It was 11:30 p.m., city neon bleeding through sheer balcony curtains and spilling across our newly finished bridal suite. Every corner screamed expensive wedding luxury. Ivory silk bed sheets embroidered with our intertwined initials, matching velvet throw pillows, gilded mirrors wrapped in white rose vines, crystal table lamps dotted with tiny pearl accents. The faint sweet scent of champagne and white gardenias lingered in the air, left over from our afternoon church wedding reception. Tonight was my wedding night. My name is Clara Hale, 25 years old, and I'd just married the man I'd loved for 3 whole years. 3 years of quiet pining, 1 year of steady dating, from shy, starry-eyed crushes to an elaborate engagement, culminating in the lavish white wedding every social media influencer envied. Everyone around me praised Ethan as the perfect catch: sharp-featured, soft-spoken, ambitious, endlessly polite. Whether in front of society crowds or behind closed doors, he doted on me nonstop, always patient and accommodating. Relatives and business partners alike whispered that I, the sole heiress to Hale Global Enterprises, had struck gold with a humble, self-made gentleman who loved me unconditionally. The wedding day had drained every ounce of my energy. I'd stood for hours in a heavy lace ball gown and stiletto heels, greeting guests, circulating cocktail hours, posing for endless photos. My muscles ached from head to toe, yet my heart buzzed with pure, unfiltered joy. This was the day I'd dreamed of since I was a teenager, the perfect happy ending to my years of quiet longing. The shower water shut off in the en-suite bathroom. The frosted glass door slid open, warm steam billowing out into the room. Ethan stepped through, damp dark hair stuck to his forehead, water droplets sliding down his defined jawline onto loose black cotton loungewear. He'd always been stunning, refined, quiet, handsome, with an air of gentle sophistication that turned every head at corporate events. Stripped of his tailored wedding tuxedo, he looked softer, more relaxed, effortlessly charming. I perched on the edge of the bed and lifted my gaze, shy adoration clear in my eyes. "You must be exhausted," I murmured, reaching out to brush the water off his forehead. Like every newlywed couple, tonight was supposed to be tender, intimate, full of quiet, whispered promises. We'd waited a full year of dating to take things further. Ethan had always insisted on respecting my boundaries, saying he wanted to save all our intimacy for our wedding night. I'd let every wall down, fully ready to surrender to our future together. But the second my fingertips neared his skin, Ethan subtly shifted his body to dodge my touch. The movement was tiny, almost imperceptible, a subconscious flinch of distance that most people would brush off as accidental. But I saw it. A faint chill pricked my chest, light but impossible to ignore. I froze mid-gesture, tilting my head to stare at him, confused. Ethan avoided my eyes entirely, crossing the room to collapse heavily onto our wedding bed, leaning back against the upholstered headboard and massaging his temples. Every line of his body radiated hollow, performative exhaustion, no trace of warmth or fondness directed my way. "It's far too late. I'm worn thin," he mumbled, voice rough and flat, devoid of any affection. "I drank too much at the reception, my head's pounding. Let's just get some sleep." I sat there stunned, the bright happiness in my chest instantly snuffed out. Our wedding night, the moment I'd fantasized about for years, and my husband brushed me off with a lazy excuse of tiredness. I curled my fingers into loose fists, pushing back the sharp wave of disappointment, scrambling to find excuses for his coldness. He'd pulled off every single wedding detail single-handedly, running between caterers, florists, venue staff, and hundreds of chatty guests all day long. He'd grown up with nothing, clawed his way up the social ladder alone. This wedding meant infinitely more pressure for him than it ever could for me. I'd been raised in wealth, handed every opportunity on a silver platter. I had no right to be selfish, fixated on my own romantic expectations while ignoring how drained he must be. Once I rationalized his behavior, the hurt faded, replaced by soft sympathy. I nodded gently, my tone warm and forgiving. "Of course, rest as much as you need. We have all the time in the world." I stood and fetched a lightweight cashmere throw blanket from the walk-in closet, draping it carefully over his shoulders and tucking the edges neatly around his frame. If he needed space to recharge, I'd give it to him willingly. Marriage wasn't just fleeting passion. It was patience, compromise, quiet companionship. I was happy to wait for him to feel ready. Ethan kept his eyes closed the entire time, not a single word of thanks, not a gentle glance or soft touch to reassure me. He leaned against the headboard, a cold, invisible wall separating us, as if his new wife was nothing more than a random stranger sharing his room. I swallowed the odd unease bubbling in my throat and flicked off the harsh crystal chandelier, leaving only a warm brass table lamp casting soft gold light over the bed. The glow softened the elaborate wedding decor, yet somehow made the penthouse feel emptier, colder. I lay down on my side of the mattress, keeping a full fist's worth of space between us. Separate beds, separate blankets on our wedding night. No kisses, no cuddles, no soft late-night whispers, not even a simple goodnight. The sprawling luxury penthouse hung thick with silence. Only distant city traffic hums and Ethan's steady, detached breathing breaking the quiet. I tossed and turned for hours, every ounce of my excitement deflated, leaving a hollow void in my chest. I told myself repeatedly I was overreacting, too needy, too sensitive, but that strange, unsettling tension lingered, impossible to shake off. Eventually, sheer physical exhaustion drowned out my racing thoughts, and I drifted into shallow sleep. I woke hours later to urgent pressure in my bladder, the digital nightstand clock glowing 2:07 a.m. The entire upscale high-rise complex was silent. No chatter, no footsteps, dead quiet. I instinctively shifted toward Ethan's side of the bed, hoping to steal a little warmth, but my palm landed on cold, unwrinkled linen. Empty. No body heat, no steady rise and fall of breathing. The sheet hadn't been disturbed at all. I jolted fully awake, heart skipping a beat. The spot beside me was vacant. Ethan was gone. Panic coiled cold around my spine, spreading down to my fingertips and toes. It was 2 a.m, our wedding night. He'd claimed he was too drained to share an intimate moment, yet he'd vanished from our bedroom entirely. I slid out of bed barefoot, stepping lightly across the rug to avoid making noise. The bedroom was eerily quiet, the bathroom door wide open, walk-in closet empty. Ethan was nowhere inside the room. Where could he possibly be? The silence amplified every tiny sound, so when a faint, breathy giggle drifted over from the balcony, I caught it crystal clear. This wasn't my imagination. Muffled, sultry murmurs tangled with soft laughter drifted through the glass, low enough to sound secret, intimate, unmistakably 2 people sharing private affection. My body locked rigid in place, blood freezing solid in my veins. Late night, our brand new penthouse, my husband sneaking off to the balcony with another woman. Dozens of horrific possibilities flooded my mind, yet I couldn't force myself to walk away. I held my breath, moving inch by inch toward the floor-to-ceiling glass doors. The drapes were drawn tight, only that slim vertical crack offering a view outside. I ducked my head slightly and peered through, and the image I saw destroyed every belief I'd ever held about Ethan and our love. Cool night wind swept across the balcony, moonlight coating the tile floor in silver. Ethan stood with his back to the bedroom windows. Every trace of his earlier weariness vanished. His arms wrapped tight around the woman pressed against the metal railing, their bodies pressed flush, no gap between them. Chloe wore that tight burgundy slip dress, short enough to show off her long, pale legs, molded completely against Ethan's torso. She tilted her chin upward, hands looped around his neck, meeting his ravenous kisses head-on. Moonlight highlighted her curvy figure and bold, dramatic makeup, her face twisted with satisfied, victorious delight. One of Ethan's hands gripped her waist firmly. The other cupped her skull as he kissed her without restraint, utterly lost in their forbidden tryst. The gentle, reserved man I'd married was gone, replaced by someone reckless, unapologetic, completely unburdened by the wedding vows he'd spoken hours earlier. I stood hidden behind the curtain, ice seeping through every bone, nails carving raw half-moon cuts into my palms that I couldn't feel at all. My husband had snuck another woman into our wedding penthouse, onto our private balcony, just a few feet away from our bed, making out shamelessly while I slept alone inside. The worst part? He hadn't even bothered locking the balcony sliding door. He'd been fully confident I'd sleep through everything, oblivious to his betrayal. Their make-out sessions stretched on for what felt like an eternity, my legs going numb, my eyes burning with unshed tears I refused to let fall. Eventually, they pulled apart. Chloe stroked Ethan's kiss-swollen lower lip, her voice lazy and bitter. "You grew bold enough to bring me straight here tonight, didn't you? Aren't you scared your new bride will wake up and catch us?" Ethan chuckled low, lifting her hand to press a kiss to her fingers, overflowing with the indulgence I'd never once received. "She sleeps like she's dead. Even if she woke up, what would it matter? That lovesick fool will swallow any lie I feed her." He glanced toward the bedroom again, his gaze empty, dismissive, as if discussing a worthless possession. "Putting on a loving husband show all day, sharing a bed with her every night. It's torture. Only holding you makes me feel alive." Chloe giggled, leaning in to whisper something private in his ear. Ethan's smile widened, and he pulled her back into his embrace, forehead pressed to hers, his words quiet yet razor-sharp. "Just hold on a little longer, darling. Once I've fully absorbed the Hale family's corporate network and built my reputation, I'll divorce Clara immediately and marry you. This marriage is nothing but a stepping stone for my career. I've never loved her, not even once." He said it with unshakable certainty, as if stating a simple fact. Chloe leaned happily into his chest, arms winding around his waist. As she rested her cheek against his collarbone, her eyes flicked straight to my hidden slit in the curtains. She saw me. A thin, icy smirk tugged at her lips, filled with unbridled taunting, as if to say, "Look who he really chooses, look how irrelevant you are." I couldn't tell if she'd known I was watching the whole time or just spotted me in that split second, but either way, she didn't panic. She deliberately tightened her grip around Ethan's neck and kissed his throat slowly, letting out a soft, breathy whimper to rile him further. Ethan's breath hitched, and he spun her around to pin her against the railing from behind, his voice rough with arousal. "Quit teasing me. Let's go inside somewhere more private." "What's the rush?" Chloe purred, tilting her head to meet his eyes. "Your silly wife isn't waking up anytime soon." "She's definitely naive enough." Ethan laughed, his fingers sliding slowly down her bare shoulder. "She believes every word I say. If I claim I'm exhausted, she buys it instantly. If I say I'm stuck at work, she waits up patiently for hours. 3 years of her pouring all her love into me, and she still thinks my feelings are genuine." He pressed a soft kiss to her earlobe, his tone low enough to get carried away by the breeze, yet clear enough to slice through my heart. "Pathetic, isn't she?" I stood behind the curtain, every drop of blood in my body turning frigid. That single laugh, that casual insult, hurt worse than every cruel confession combined. He spoke about me like a meaningless joke, while the woman in his arms stared back at me with greedy, victorious eyes. Wind slammed hard against the glass balcony doors, the dull thud faint compared to the cold sting of those two words. Pathetic, isn't she? I slowly released my clenched fists, raw bleeding marks embedded deep into my skin. I didn't storm outside screaming, didn't break down sobbing, didn't unleash a messy public confrontation. I stepped backward, sinking fully into the bedroom's shadowed corner. The curtains fluttered gently, and behind the glass, the pair continued their affair. Ethan lifted Chloe into his arms and carried her toward the guest suite down the hall, the only room in the penthouse without security cameras. He'd planned every single detail ahead of time. I stood motionless, surrounded by every trace of our wedding celebration, the ivory silk decor reflecting my pale, lifeless face back at me from the wall mirrors. 3 hours prior, he'd held my hands at the altar, vowing lifelong devotion before every single one of our family members and business associates. I'd cried happy tears, convinced I'd found the perfect partner. Now he carried another woman through my penthouse, laughing and calling me pathetic behind my back. The entire wedding had been a performance, and I'd been the only audience member fooled. Every gentle gesture, every thoughtful compromise, every soft-spoken word of admiration had been a pre-planned trap. He'd married me purely for profit, methodically draining my family's wealth and influence step by step. He'd been brazen enough to sneak his lover into our home on our wedding night, flaunt their affair within arm's reach, with zero attempt to hide their betrayal. I lifted my head to stare at my reflection in the glass. Pale, empty-eyed, all romantic hopes snuffed out completely, replaced by cold, unshakable resolve. I didn't sleep a single wink for the rest of the night. Muffled noises drifted from the guest suite for nearly 2 hours. Soft feminine laughter, Ethan's low murmurs, the faint creak of a mattress. They carried on their affair inside my wedding penthouse, beneath my roof, on the night we'd exchanged vows. I sat alone in the pitch-black bedroom corner, my back pressed against the cold drywall, knuckles white as I bit down hard on my lower lip until I tasted metallic blood. I didn't cry. Tears were only for people who cared about you, and neither of them cared about my pain. One saw me as a career ladder. The other saw me as a joke. They were too busy indulging each other in the guest suite to spare me a single thought. At 4:30 a.m., the guest suite door creaked open. I heard soft footsteps padding down the hallway, pausing right outside our bedroom door. I held my breath, slowed my breathing to mimic deep sleep, eyes squeezed shut tight. A thin strip of hallway light seeped through the door crack, then a shadow blocked it entirely. The silhouette lingered for 10 full seconds, and I heard Ethan let out a quiet, mocking huff. He was confirming I was still dead to the world. Footsteps retreated toward the front entryway, quiet whispers of goodbye, then the distant hum of the building elevator. Moments later, footsteps returned and pushed open our bedroom door, Ethan stepping inside, carrying fresh shower steam. He slid back under the blanket beside me, keeping a full blanket's worth of distance, not touching me once. 3 minutes later, deep, satisfied snores filled the room. He slept soundly after hours with another woman, returning to our shared bed like nothing had happened beside his betrayed bride. That level of cold, calculated performance explained how he deceived me for 3 entire years. I opened my eyes slowly, staring at his blurred silhouette in the dark. Moonlight traced his handsome, deceptive jawline, a faint self-satisfied smile tugging at his lips as he dreamed, probably of climbing the social ladder, ditching me, and marrying Chloe once he'd stolen everything from my family. I stood quietly, barefoot, and walked down the hallway to the guest suite. The door hung slightly ajar, a thick cloud of Chloe's cloying vanilla perfume washing over me the second I pushed it open. The bed sheets were crumpled and tangled. A dark lipstick stain marked one silk pillow, and a tiny diamond stud earring lay discarded between the cushions. I pulled out my phone and photographed every piece of evidence, frame by frame, no tremor in my hands. Next, I logged into the penthouse's security cloud portal. This luxury apartment had been fully purchased by me before our marriage. I'd installed hidden HD cameras with crisp audio recording across the living room, balcony, and hallways for safety, never once telling Ethan they existed. I pulled up the footage from 1:40 a.m., catching Chloe entering the front door in that burgundy slip dress, punching in the entry code without hesitation. The code was my birthday. He hadn't even bothered changing it, fully confident I'd never check the security logs. The balcony camera captured every second of their makeout session, the high-definition audio recording every cruel word he'd spoken about me. The line pathetic, "Isn't she?" crystal clear, undeniable proof of his betrayal. The hallway cameras documented him carrying Chloe into the guest suite and her solo exit at dawn. I clipped and saved every video file, backing them up to 3 separate locations: encrypted cloud storage, a hidden external hard drive, and my spare work phone. Zero risk of the evidence disappearing. I tucked the diamond earring into the deepest drawer of my nightstand, locked away for later use. Dawn broke soft pink over the downtown skyline. At 7 a.m., Ethan stirred awake, immediately slipping back into his flawless, gentle husband persona. He wandered into the kitchen and whipped up my favorite vanilla bean pancakes, sliding the warm plate across the marble counter to me, his brows drawn with fake concern. "You look exhausted. Honey, your eyes are all puffy. Rest up today, I'll stay home with you." I picked up my fork, a soft, practiced smile on my lips. "Thank you, you're so thoughtful." He brushed a hand gently through my hair before stepping out onto the balcony to take a phone call. Through the glass, I watched his entire demeanor shift, voice soft, tender, overflowing with the affection he'd never wasted on me, murmuring sweet nothings to Chloe on the other end of the line. I set down my fork and began executing the first phase of my plan, calm and collected. I opened our conversation naturally, testing his willingness to lie. "You must have been completely worn out last night," I said, tone full of innocent sympathy. "You passed out so fast, I barely heard you move. Did you head out to the balcony for fresh air in the middle of the night?" I watched his face closely, tracking every micro-expression for guilt. Ethan's shoulders tensed for a split second, barely noticeable, but I'd been pressed against his shoulder, so I caught the tiny rigid shift instantly. He recovered in less than a heartbeat, expression calm and unflustered, crafting his lies seamlessly. I couldn't quiet my racing mind with all the wedding stress, so I stepped outside the balcony for a minute to clear my head. I didn't want to wake you, so I stayed out there a while. A flawless, rehearsed excuse, perfectly tailored to fool a loving, trusting wife. Once, I would have rushed to comfort him, apologizing for doubting him, swearing I understood every ounce of his pressure. Now, staring at his fake, remorseful expression, I only felt icy disgust. He hadn't been stressed. He'd been wrapped in Chloe's arms, plotting how to steal my family's wealth and abandon me. I pushed down the mocking laughter rising in my throat, leaning my head lightly against his shoulder, voice soft and compliant, the exact same adoring Clara he'd spent 3 years manipulating. "I get it. Don't worry about it. If you're ever overwhelmed, you can always talk to me about anything. Everything's better with you by my side," Ethan purred, wrapping an arm loosely around my waist and patting my back in a hollow display of fondness. I buried my face against his shoulder, cold eyes fixed on his neck. A faint, foreign perfume clung to his skin, Chloe's cheap vanilla fragrance, layered over his cedar shower gel. The scent was faint, easy to overlook, but after watching them kiss for hours overnight, I recognized it instantly. A cold wave washed over me again. Their affair had lasted far longer than I'd suspected. Not a one-night slip-up, but months of hidden deceit. All 3 years of my devoted love had been nothing but a sad substitute while he waited to climb into my family's fortune. "Hey," I said casually, feigning total ignorance. "I woke up once around 2, and your side of the bed was empty. I figured you'd stepped outside for air." Ethan's body locked up again, a tiny, involuntary twitch I couldn't miss. He relaxed instantly, forcing easy laughter to cover the split second of panic. Yep, the wedding chaos and my mind racing. Sat out on the balcony alone for a while to decompress, didn't want to rouse you. Another perfect, empty lie. I smiled sweetly, nodding in blind agreement. Next time wake me up. I'll sit with you if you're anxious. Will do, sweetheart, Ethan replied, pressing a meaningless kiss to the crown of my head, his gaze completely empty of warmth. He pulled away and walked toward the walk-in closet to change clothes, ready to resume his perfect husband performance for the world. I watched his tall, polished back, my soft smile fading completely, every trace of warmth freezing solid behind my eyes. Just then, my personal cell phone lit up on the counter, a text from an unknown number popping up bold and unmissable. Congratulations on your wedding, Clara. Too bad your husband spent the whole night wrapped around me on your balcony. You're stuck in an empty marriage while he craves me. Doesn't that hurt? The screen's glow burned against my retinas, sharp and cruel. Chloe wasn't just sneaking around behind closed doors. She was bold enough to send direct, taunting texts, openly mocking my position as Ethan's legal wife. I dragged a finger slowly across the screen. No anger, no tears, only a cold, sharp smirk spreading across my face. Perfect. A reckless, impatient mistress paired with a greedy, manipulative gold digger husband. The more they flaunt their arrogance, the more evidence they hand me to take them down. The game they'd started was now mine to control. The following day marked our family welcome brunch, a long-standing upper-class tradition replacing the Asian return feast. Close family, old family friends, and dozens of Hale Global's business partners gathered at my parents' sprawling lakefront estate to celebrate our marriage, formalizing the alliance between our family and Ethan's budding startup firm. This brunch was Ethan's most critical opportunity to embed himself within our elite social circle, network with multi-million-dollar investors, and solidify his reputation as a loyal, devoted son-in-law. I knew he'd spent weeks prepping talking points and business pitches to maximize every connection he could make at the event. I rose from our penthouse bed and stepped in front of the full-length vanity mirror to get ready. Once, I dressed up to dazzle Ethan, hoping to win his unwavering affection. Now I dressed to maintain my gentle, unassuming heiress facade, playing the perfect obedient wife until the day I struck with full force. I slipped into a soft cream midi-wrap dress, subtle natural makeup, loose waves cascading over my shoulders. Every detail crafted to match everyone's expectation of the quiet, sweet Clara Hale. All my heartbreak and rage stayed hidden beneath polished, placid calm. When we arrived at the lake estate, the sprawling green lawn was packed with laughing guests, white floral arches strung with baby's breath, champagne bars, and catered charcuterie tables. My parents waited at the stone driveway entrance, their faces bright with pride. My mother pulled me aside to squeeze my hand, whispering gentle advice about nurturing a happy marriage. My father clapped Ethan firmly on the shoulder, entrusting him to care for their only daughter. Ethan responded flawlessly, humble and eloquent, bowing slightly to greet every elder, grinning and shaking hands with every business associate. Within an hour, every guest sang his praises. Ambitious, loyal, loving, a rare catch for a girl like me. I smiled politely through all the compliments, seething silently beneath the surface. The man everyone admired planned to drain our family's wealth and abandon me the second he'd secured enough power. Mid-brunch, as I chatted with my mother's childhood friends, my gaze drifted across the lawn and locked onto a familiar figure. Chloe stood alone beside a tall hedge, wearing that same burgundy slip dress from our wedding night, heavy dramatic makeup standing out against the crowd's soft pastel brunch attire. Her eyes never left Ethan, filled with blatant longing and unmasked jealousy. I'd never imagined she'd be reckless enough to crash my family's private welcome brunch, uninvited, hoping to disrupt our perfect social image and force Ethan to choose her publicly. She'd snuck in behind a group of distant acquaintances, banking on the chaotic crowd to avoid security questioning. Her desperation to steal Ethan's attention was palpable. Seconds later, she marched straight toward Ethan, who was surrounded by 3 senior investors discussing multi-million-dollar partnership deals. The second Ethan spotted her, his warm, easy smile vanished, panic and suppressed rage flashing across his face. He couldn't afford a scene. Not here, not in front of every investor he'd spent months courting. He mumbled a quick excuse to the businessmen and hurried down a quiet stone-side corridor, Chloe hot on his heels, refusing to back down. I apologized to the relatives beside me and slipped away, hiding behind a marble column to record their entire argument on my phone camera, high-resolution footage capturing every bitter exchange. The empty corridor hummed with tension, their voices sharp and heated. Chloe tilted her chin up to stare Ethan down, hurt and resentment thick in her tone. You get to walk around here in a designer suit, surrounded by wealthy investors, playing the doting husband to your heiress wife, living the perfect life while I hide in the shadows. Ethan's jaw tightened, his voice low and furious, the gentle mask completely discarded. Who told you to come here? Leave immediately. This place is off limits to you. I'd never seen this cold, cruel side of him before. His softness was never innate. It was a performance reserved only for people with money and power. With Chloe, he showed his raw, unfiltered temper. Even his anger was a rare form of attention he'd never granted me. Why can't I stay? Chloe's eyes welled with tears, reaching for his arm, which he dodged instantly. You married someone else, and I can't even speak to you? You swore last night you loved only me, that you don't care about her at all. If you hate pretending to adore her so much, why keep up this charade? Ethan's frustration boiled over, yet he glanced around constantly to make sure no one overheard, forcing a soothing, placating tone only for her benefit, a kindness I'd never once received. I'm at a critical career stage right now. Don't create a scene, or we'll both lose everything we've worked for. Just wait a little longer. Everything will go the way we want. I can't wait anymore. Chloe's voice rose sharply, echoing down the empty hallway. I watch you parade around with her, accepting everyone's congratulations, and it's driving me insane. Tell me right now, when are you filing for divorce? They stood inches apart, their body language thick with forbidden intimacy, every word spoken damning proof of Ethan's infidelity and premeditated betrayal. I stayed hidden behind the pillar, recording every second, every whispered confession captured on my phone storage. Suddenly, Ethan's gaze shot toward my hiding spot. Our eyes locked, and his pupils blew wide with pure terror, panic flooding his features. I slid my phone into my crossbody bag and stepped out from the shadowed column, a soft, oblivious smile on my face, tone light and harmless, as if I'd seen nothing, heard nothing. Ethan, Mom's looking for you. Several of her business partners want to discuss investment opportunities. Ethan's panic vanished in a split second, pushing Chloe roughly to the side and striding toward me, reactivating his perfect husband persona without a single beat of hesitation. He wrapped an arm around my shoulders, leaning down to murmur fake reassurance in my ear. That was just an old college coworker with a minor work dispute. We sorted everything out quickly. A pathetic, transparent excuse, obviously crafted to cover his tracks. I tilted my head up at him, eyes wide with blind trust, nodding gently. No worries. I believe you completely. My fake obedience made Ethan breathe a massive sigh of relief, all his tension melting away. He pulled me tighter against his side, ready to return to the brunch crowd and resume his flawless performance. As we walked past Chloe, I caught her frozen, livid expression, eyes blazing with bitter envy as she stared at Ethan's arm around my shoulders. Her hatred was tangible, yet I remained calm, every piece of my retaliation plan clicking into place. The real drama was only just beginning. As we neared the corridor exit, Chloe lunged forward suddenly, grabbing Ethan's sleeve and rising on her tiptoes to press a quick, bold kiss to his cheek, an open, deliberate act of provocation meant to break my composure. Ethan's entire body stiffened, his face draining pale white. I tilted my head to the side, feigning innocent confusion. Did something brush against your cheek just now? Is it pollen from the rose bushes? Ethan's breath hitched, his fingers tightening around my wrist with subtle, desperate force, desperate to redirect the conversation before I questioned him further. Just a stray flower petal, nothing important. Let's not keep your parents waiting. He dragged me toward the lawn at a rushed pace, his back rigid, every trace of his usual poise shattered. He didn't spare Chloe a single glance, only shooting her a venomous warning glare from the corner of his eye. I didn't glance back, yet I could picture Chloe's defeated, furious face clear as day. In this silent power struggle, I already held all the cards, watching them both unravel themselves with every reckless choice. That night, we returned to our penthouse. The second the front door clicked shut, Ethan stripped off his tailored blazer and tossed it carelessly onto the leather sofa, every ounce of his polished public mask falling away. His face twisted with irritation and exhaustion, and he marched straight to the balcony to light a cigarette, escaping into his own bitter thoughts. I left him alone outside, slipping into the master bedroom and closing the door firmly behind me, focusing on organizing my mountain of evidence piece by piece. First, I pulled up the hallway footage from the brunch, crystal clear clips of Chloe's tearful demands, Ethan's angry warnings, their close, affectionate confrontation, unquestionable visual proof of his affair. I duplicated the video files 3 times, saving encrypted copies to cloud storage, a portable hard drive, and my spare work phone, eliminating any risk of loss or deletion. Next, I re-accessed the penthouse security portal. I'd fully purchased this luxury apartment before our marriage, installing every hidden HD camera and audio recorder years prior for personal safety. Ethan had never suspected they existed. I pulled up the wedding night balcony footage once more, the video capturing every heated kiss and every cruel confession. The line, "I'll divorce Clara once I steal the Hale fortune," recorded in crisp, unalterable audio. I saved every time-stamped clip, my hand steady, no trace of the heartbroken girl who'd hidden behind the curtain hours earlier. 3 years of unconditional love had burned away completely, leaving only cold, calculated revenge. Simple proof of infidelity wouldn't be enough to destroy Ethan's carefully built reputation as a humble, self-made, rising businessman. I planned to expose every layer of his deception, his premeditated scheme to marry me for wealth, his embezzlement of Hale corporate funds, his calculated plot to divorce me and seize half my assets. I wanted to ruin his career, his social standing, and every opportunity he'd stolen from my family. I logged into our shared joint banking portal and began scrolling through every transaction from our 3 years of dating. The records shocked me, even after everything I'd witnessed. From the very month we started dating, Ethan had maintained constant large cash transfers, luxury designer bag purchases, and expensive jewelry gifts for Chloe, all funded by the business opportunities he'd only landed through my family's connections, plus the cash gifts I'd given him over our relationship. On every Valentine's Day, anniversary, and holiday he'd spent doting on me, he'd sneak away late at night to wire thousands of dollars to Chloe's bank account and drop off high-end designer jewelry for her. The day after our engagement party, he'd taken the $28,000 engagement gift check my parents gave him and transferred every penny to Chloe's account to buy her a limited edition handbag to calm her jealousy. I stared at the endless list of dated transactions, every entry a brutal reminder of how foolish I'd been to trust him. I'd pour my family's resources, my time, and my unconditional love into lifting him from poverty to elite society, while he turned every dollar I gave him into gifts for his secret lover, meticulously plotting to drain me dry before abandoning me entirely. He embodied every stereotype of a social climber, consumed by greed, dishonesty, and ungratefulness. Digging deeper through bank and rental records, I uncovered an even more damning detail. 6 months before our wedding, Ethan had leased a luxury downtown studio apartment solely for Chloe, paying $3,200 monthly rent and furnishing it with high-end furniture and decor. Every time he'd claimed late-night work meetings, out-of-town business trips, or last-minute client dinners, he'd actually been at that secret apartment with his mistress. Every time I'd comforted him after long work nights, told him I admired his relentless drive, forgiven his late arrivals, I'd only fed his ability to lie without consequence. I screenshot every rental contract, bank transfer, and credit card receipt, sorting them into labeled digital folders with clear chronological timelines, building an airtight case, proving his infidelity and financial exploitation of my family's wealth. As I sorted through the files, I stumbled across a hidden cloud document written entirely by Ethan, and the cold, premeditated text sent a chill down my spine. It was a detailed, step-by-step plan he'd drafted months before our wedding, outlining every stage of his manipulation of me and my family. He'd written that pursuing me was the fastest shortcut to wealth and social status. Once he'd accumulated enough capital through Hale Global Partnerships within 1 year, he planned to file for divorce within 2 years, claiming irreconcilable differences to demand a large share of my marital assets, then immediately marry Chloe. Every word was cold, transactional, lacking even a hint of human empathy. Every awkward moment, every distant gesture, every suspicious late night I'd brushed off as stress now had a horrific, calculated explanation. Ethan had never felt a single spark of genuine affection for me. Every soft word, every thoughtful gesture, every romantic date had been a carefully scripted performance to climb the social ladder. I'd been nothing more than a tool for his upward mobility, my family's business empire his ultimate target. City lights glowed far below the penthouse windows, the bustling downtown skyline bright and glamorous. Yet the apartment felt suffocatingly cold around me. I could hear Ethan's quiet cigarette drags out on the balcony, oblivious to the mountain of damning evidence I'd uncovered against him. 3 years of my life wasted on a manipulative con artist. But I didn't cry or spiral into despair. After the crushing heartbreak of the wedding night, only icy clarity remained. If he'd spent years plotting to drain my wealth and destroy my life, I would dismantle every piece of his carefully constructed plan, strip him of every opportunity, and make him pay for every lie and betrayal. I screenshot every line of his digital master plan, backing the document up to 3 separate encrypted storage systems. This written confession was far more devastating than simple cheating footage. Infidelity could be dismissed as a fleeting mistake, but this premeditated scheme proved he'd entered our marriage with fraudulent intent to steal my family's fortune. I closed my laptop and sat silently in the dark bedroom, mapping out my full retaliation strategy. I held mountains of evidence, but the timing wasn't right yet. Ethan was at the peak of his momentum, relying fully on Hale Global's partnerships to build his brand. If I exposed him now, he might slip away with minor damage, still able to rebuild his reputation elsewhere. I would wait until he reached the absolute height of his success, standing center stage in front of every wealthy investor and social elite, then strike hard and publicly, sending his reputation crashing down beyond repair. For the next 2 weeks, Ethan grew increasingly anxious and frantic. He rushed from one corporate meeting to the next, desperate to reclaim a major downtown development contract my father had temporarily reassigned to another senior executive. Meanwhile, Chloe's harassing text messages grew more frequent and vicious by the day. He spent last night at my apartment. Did you sleep alone again? He says you're boring in bed. Nothing compared to me. You're clinging to a meaningless marriage where he never touches you. How sad. I screenshot every toxic message, never replying to a single one. At the same time, I began executing my 4-step counterattack plan. Step 1. Secure all personal assets. I transferred every dollar held in my premarital savings, investment portfolios, and trust funds in my father's corporate holding account, creating fully traceable legal records to prove these assets belonged solely to me before the wedding. I packed all my luxury jewelry, designer handbags, and vintage watches into locked storage at my mother's estate. I updated the penthouse entry passcode, but kept the old code active in the system. Every time Ethan used it to enter, my phone received an instant alert. He wouldn't notice a single change. He'd never cared about the apartment's contents, only its market value and the social status it granted him. Step 2. Cut off his access to Hale Global Resources. I visited my parents' lake estate over dinner one evening, casually mentioning to my father that he should temporarily remove Ethan from all core development projects to avoid unnecessary office gossip about nepotism. It's just a temporary procedural shift to avoid rumors that he's only landing deals through marrying me, I explained calmly. We can reassign him once the project is finalized. My father agreed instantly, seeing the logic in avoiding public scrutiny. The following morning, Ethan received an official corporate email. Due to internal restructuring, the downtown development project lead role will temporarily transfer to Vice President Miller. Future project assignments will be communicated separately. He called me within 5 minutes, clear panic bleeding into his voice. Clara, what's going on with the downtown contract? I've managed every detail for months. Why's the lead position getting reassigned? I leaned back against the sofa, voice warm and unconcerned. I'm not entirely sure. It's probably just internal corporate policy. Don't worry, Dad values you more than anyone. They'll hand the project back once the reorganization wraps up. He forced a stiff response and hung up, and I caught him muttering a frustrated curse before he ended the call, unintentionally recorded by my phone's voice memo app. Slowly, methodically, I pulled the foundation out from under his career one brick at a time. Step 3. Dig up every financial crime. I hired a licensed private investigation firm to compile a full report on Ethan's business dealings. The finished file revealed staggering illegal activity. Throughout our dating relationship, Ethan had leveraged my family's corporate connections to broker 7 separate side business deals, siphoning over $290,000 in unreported commission fees. A portion of that stolen money funded Chloe's luxury lifestyle and her downtown apartment. The rest he poured into risky personal stock investments, all transactions unreported to Hale Global's finance department. Worse still, he'd signed a secret side profit-sharing agreement with the downtown project construction contractor, promising himself a 15% hidden cut of all project revenue. An illegal contract negotiated entirely under Hale Global's corporate endorsement, never filed with our company's legal team. My family's corporate attorney reviewed the documents and gave me a blunt verdict. This constitutes felony fraud, embezzlement, and breach of fiduciary duty. The evidence is strong enough for criminal charges. I closed the case file, tapping my fingertips against the leather cover. Financial fraud alone would ruin his career, but I wanted total public humiliation, complete social ostracism. Criminal charges would be the final blow, but first, I destroy his reputation in front of every elite contact he'd spent years currying favor with. I authorized additional payment to the investigators. Dig up Chloe's full personal history, every detail of her background. A week later, their new report arrived, and the revelations only confirmed my suspicions. Chloe wasn't Ethan's long-lost first love or tragic soulmate. She'd been his college girlfriend, who'd broken up with him years earlier because he couldn't afford her expensive taste, immediately dating a wealthy tech entrepreneur to fund her shopping habits. Ethan had reconnected with her at a charity gala, the same night he'd first met me, the Hale family heiress. Investigator timelines confirmed Ethan added both Chloe and me to his contact list that same evening, spending 2 weeks weighing which woman offered faster access to wealth and power. He'd chosen me for my family's fortune, yet simultaneously promised Chloe he'd divorce me once he'd climbed the social ladder. Their so-called epic forbidden love was nothing more than a transactional arrangement. Chloe craved luxury and social status. Ethan craved wealth and influence. I'd been their shared target, a disposable pawn in their mutual scheme. I labeled this report the Gala Reveal Master Bomb and filed it separately for the big night. Step 4. Apply slow, steady pressure. 1 week before the elite downtown business gala, Ethan was unraveling with stress. He'd attended every corporate mixer, bought rounds of expensive drinks for investors, and begged for favors. Yet every business contact who'd once catered to him due to my family's name suddenly grew cold and distant. His key project had been reassigned, all pending partnerships stalled, and every door he'd planned to walk through slammed shut one by one. He was a man drowning, desperate for a lifeline. One late night, he stumbled home intoxicated, sinking onto our bed and grabbing my hands tightly, his eyes bloodshot with panic and desperation. The same vulnerable act he'd used to manipulate me for years. "Clara, please talk to your father about giving the downtown project back to me. This deal makes or breaks my entire career. I'll lose everything I've worked for if it falls through. Once, this display of distress would have broken my heart, pushing me to beg my father for mercy and pull every string to restore his opportunities. I'd spent 3 years acting as his personal career advocate, lifting him higher every single time he stumbled. Now, watching his desperate performance, I felt nothing but cold detachment. I brushed a strand of hair from his forehead, voice soft and reassuring. "I'll speak to Dad tomorrow. Don't worry a thing." He exhaled in massive relief, pulling me into a tight embrace and pressing a desperate kiss to my forehead. "I swear I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you." I let him hold me, my shoulders stiff beneath his grip, every inch of my heart encased in ice. I would speak to my father the next day, but not to plead Ethan's case. I'd inform my dad the entire scheme was coming to a head, all evidence secured, and the gala would be the night we brought Ethan's fraudulent empire crashing down. I'd smile and tell him to wait for the public reckoning. The evening before the gala, Ethan arrived home carrying an elaborate bouquet of white gardenias and a floor-length champagne silk gown encrusted with tiny Swarovski crystals, a costly splurge he'd charged to our shared credit card. He dropped to one knee to fasten my satin heels, gazing up at me with feverish, determined ambition shining in his eyes. Tomorrow's gala is my chance to turn everything around. If I lock in the downtown partnership in front of every investor, all these setbacks will vanish instantly. He cupped my cheeks gently, his tone artificially sincere. "Trust me, once I'm successful, I'll give you every luxury you could ever want." I stared down at him, a soft, obedient smile tugging at my lips. "I trust you completely." I trusted every single one of his cruel, manipulative plans to steal my family's wealth. And I trusted my own plan to destroy him in front of every powerful person he'd ever wanted to impress. He tied the gown's silk ribbon around my back, his fingertips brushing my shoulder blades, full of overconfident anticipation. I glanced at my reflection in the vanity mirror, my face soft and demure, the perfect image of a loyal, trusting wife. Only I knew the cold, vengeful fire burning beneath the surface. The gala would start at 7 p.m. the following evening. I'd organized every piece of evidence meticulously. The wedding night balcony surveillance footage, every bank transfer receipt, Ethan's typed digital master plan, Chloe's endless harassing text messages, the secret rental lease for her downtown apartment, the illegal profit-sharing contract, and the private investigator's full background report on both conspirators. One complete digital folder was sent to my family attorney to be used for divorce filings and criminal fraud charges. A second encrypted folder was scheduled to auto-send to every local financial news outlet and all of Hale Global's business partners at 8:30 p.m., 30 minutes after Ethan's scheduled keynote speech. A third full copy remained stored on my personal phone, ready to cast directly onto the gala's massive central LED screen at any moment. He dreamed of standing on that stage, bathed in spotlight, cheered by every elite investor, celebrating his fake rags-to-riches success story with his loyal heiress wife by his side. I planned to hand him that spotlight, then drag him off the pedestal for the entire room to watch his public humiliation. Night fell, and Ethan fell asleep beside me, a self-satisfied smile on his face as he dreamed of securing the downtown contract and cementing his social rise. I sat awake in the dark, scrolling back to the final frame of the wedding night balcony footage. Chloe's taunting stare over Ethan's shoulder, Ethan's mouth curved as he called me pathetic. I locked my phone screen. Tomorrow night, they'd learn exactly who deserved to be called pathetic. The next evening, the downtown five-star hotel's grand ballroom hosted the year's most exclusive business gala. Every top-tier real estate investor, corporate executive, and wealthy socialite in the city filled the room, the exact elite circle Ethan had spent years begging to join. It was the most important stage of his career, the peak he'd sacrificed everything to reach. He dressed in a custom-tailored charcoal designer suit, hair perfectly styled, every line of his posture radiating unbridled ambition, barely hiding his excitement. The humble, Reserved demeanor he'd perfected around my family vanished, replaced by arrogant, unmasked greed. I wore a sleek, minimalist black silk floor-length gown, subtle understated diamond jewelry, calm and poised at his side, the model of a refined, supportive wife. No guest suspected the lethal revenge plan hidden inside my evening clutch. Before we left the penthouse, Ethan grabbed my wrist, his voice tight with desperate expectation. "Clara, tonight's make or break for me. Make sure you network with every investor's spouse. If I close this downtown deal, I'll never have to rely on your family's influence again." His promise of independence meant cutting my family out the second he'd drained all our connections, then dumping me to marry Chloe. I smiled softly, nodding obediently. "I'll handle everything, don't worry." My blind compliance was the final safety net he clung to, completely oblivious to the trap I'd laid. He wrapped an arm around my waist and escorted me into the ballroom, circulating effortlessly through the crowd, shaking hands, swapping business cards, leaning heavily on his status as Hale Global's son-in-law to win favor from every powerful attendee. Within the first hour, he'd finalized nearly all preliminary partnership terms, the multi-million-dollar downtown contract only awaiting a formal public announcement on stage. Guests lined up to congratulate him, praising his underdog success story, envying his marriage to the Hale heiress, calling him the city's most promising young entrepreneur. Beneath the flood of compliments, Ethan's ego swelled to breaking point, floating on the high of long-awaited recognition. As the gala reached its peak, the event host took the stage and invited the night's keynote speaker forward. Ethan, the anticipated lead developer of the downtown revitalization project. Bright stage spotlights locked onto him, the entire ballroom's hundreds of eyes fixed on his figure as thunderous applause echoed through the room. He climbed the stage steps confidently, gripping the microphone, ready to deliver his pre-rehearsed heartfelt speech, cementing his perfect husband and self-made businessman persona. "I owe every bit of my success to my wife, Clara," he began, his gaze drifting down to me in the crowd, fake adoration thick in his tone, fooling every single guest. Her endless support, compassion, and family's resources gave me the courage to chase my dreams. This marriage is the greatest blessing I've ever received, and I vow to cherish and protect her for the rest of my life, every single day. The romantic, loyal monologue swept the room into warm applause, dozens of guests sighing and whispering about our picture-perfect marriage. Everyone was convinced Ethan was a rare, grateful, devoted partner who'd struck gold with a loving heiress. The applause slowly faded, the room still buzzing over his moving declaration. At that moment, I stood slowly from my table, my stiletto heels clicking cleanly across the marble ballroom floor as I walked straight toward the stage. The entire room fell silent instantly, every guest's gaze locked on me, confused and curious. Ethan's eyes widened in surprise, a soft, pleased smile tugging at his lips. He assumed I'd been moved to tears by his speech, ready to join him on stage to accept the crowd's admiration. He stretched out a hand toward me, warm and affectionate. "Darling, come stand beside me." I ignored his outstretched hand, walking past him to the stage's central tech podium, grabbing the spare microphone from the stand. My expression remained calm, voice cool and clear, amplified through every speaker in the ballroom. "Save the performance, Ethan. There's no more need to pretend." 6 quiet words shattered the warm, celebratory atmosphere completely. Ethan's fake smile froze on his face, his pupils blown wide with raw panic, all his practiced warmth vanishing in an instant. "Clara, what are you?" I cut him off before he could invent a single excuse, tapping the screen control panel linked to the ballroom's massive LED backdrop. The giant wall screen flared to life, instantly projecting the wedding night balcony surveillance footage for every guest to witness. Crisp high-definition video captured Ethan pinning Chloe against the metal railing, kissing her wildly, the clear audio broadcasting his damning confession loud enough for the entire silent ballroom to hear. "Once I've drained all the Hale family's connections and wealth, I'll divorce Clara and marry you. This marriage is only a ladder for my career. I've never loved her." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, hundreds of shocked faces turning pale, every trace of admiration and fondness erased, replaced by stunned disbelief. The man who'd just sworn undying love to his wife had cheated on her on their wedding night inside their shared penthouse, openly plotting to steal her fortune. Ethan's face drained completely white, his grip on the microphone tightening until his knuckles blanched, frozen on stage as his 3 years of carefully crafted public persona crumbled to dust in front of every investor he'd spent years impressing. My fingers moved steadily across the control panel, rolling out the next wave of damning evidence, one file at a time. Footage from the family welcome brunch played next. Ethan and Chloe arguing in the stone corridor, her tearful demands for a divorce, his panicked secret promises to leave me once he'd secured his fortune. Screenshot after screenshot of thousands of dollars in bank transfers, luxury designer receipts, the downtown apartment rental contract, all displayed in vivid detail across the wall screen. The final file popped onto the LED backdrop. Ethan's typed private cloud master plan, every cold, calculated sentence visible to the entire room. I targeted Clara exclusively for her family's corporate power. Within 2 years, I'll file for divorce and seize a portion of her marital assets to fund my life with Chloe. The cold, transactional words blazed across the massive screen, laying bare every ounce of his greed, dishonesty, and premeditated fraud for every elite socialite and business partner to dissect. The ballroom erupted into deafening chaos, overlapping murmurs of shock, disgust, and judgment echoing off the high ceilings. He only married her for money. All that sweet talk was just an act. He planned to steal her family's entire business. Every scornful, horrified gaze fixed on Ethan, pinning him to the stage in total, irreversible humiliation. Mid-chaos, a disheveled figure pushed through the crowd and sprinted to the foot of the stage. Chloe, she dressed in an expensive silk gown, hoping to watch Ethan's big victory and wait for him to abandon me publicly. Instead, she'd arrived just in time to watch every secret affair and manipulative scheme exposed to the city's entire elite circle. She stood frozen at the stage steps, her face ashen, every last shred of her hope for wealth and status shattered before her eyes. Ethan snapped out of his stunned paralysis, consumed by rage and terror, turning to scream at me. "Clara, shut the screen off right now. Have you lost your mind? What exactly do you think you're doing?" He lunged forward to grab the control panel, but 2 uniformed Hale, global security guards eyed prepositioned to the stage stairs stepped between us, blocking his path completely. I lifted the microphone to my lips, my voice steady, unshaken, ringing clear through every speaker. "What am I doing? On our wedding night, you lied about exhaustion to avoid our marriage vows, then snuck your mistress into our penthouse to plot how you'd strip my family of every asset and connection. For 3 years, you put on a tender, devoted lover act, draining my fortune to spoil Chloe while drafting a step-by-step scheme to dump me once you climbed to the top. At today's gala, you stood before every investor and swore eternal loyalty to me, all while dreaming of the day you'd toss me aside like broken furniture. Your 3-year performance of sincere love ends here. Effective immediately, I am filing for full divorce. Every personal asset I owned prior to our marriage remains fully under my name, untouched by your schemes. Every business contract and partnership you secured through Hale Global's backing is terminated with immediate effect. A single sentence wiped out every professional opportunity he'd spent his youth chasing. The investors and corporate executives filling the ballroom recoiled in open revulsion, one after another pulling out their phones to fire off emails, severing all ties with Ethan before the night ended. No one in the city's elite business sphere would ever risk partnering with a conniving fraud who married solely to embezzle his spouse's family wealth. Ethan's knees buckled, nearly collapsing onto the stage floor. Despair and venom warred on his face, his entire future crumbling into nothing in a matter of minutes. The gala dissolved into unmanageable chaos. Hale Global security staff escorted Ethan off the stage and out of the grand ballroom, with Chloe stumbling hot on his heels. As they stumbled through the hotel lobby, a swarm of local entertainment and finance reporters I'd tipped off swarmed them instantly. Camera flashes popped nonstop, microphones thrust toward their disgraced faces. "Mr. Carter, do you admit you married Clara solely to steal the Hale family's corporate fortune? Chloe, did you knowingly carry on an affair with a newlywed man on his wedding night inside his marital home? Is the written plan detailing your plot to divorce Clara and seize her assets authentic?" Ethan buried his face beneath his tailored suit jacket, sprinting toward a waiting taxi to escape the relentless media storm. Chloe lost her stiletto heels mid-scramble, her designer makeup streaking down her cheeks, the arrogant, taunting glint long gone from her eyes. I stood on the second-floor hotel balcony overlooking the lobby, swirling a glass of chilled champagne and watching their desperate, humiliating flight unfold far below. My phone vibrated against my palm. A notification confirming the timed encrypted evidence folder had auto-delivered to every news outlet, business partner, and industry forum exactly as scheduled at 8:30 p.m. By tomorrow morning, Ethan's polished, self-made, humble entrepreneur brand would be erased entirely, replaced with headlines labeling him a gold-digging con artist and serial fraudster. Every corporate door he'd pried open using my family's name would slam shut permanently. Chloe would face equal public ruin, branded a calculating homewrecker across every social media platform, blacklisted from every upscale social circle she'd begged to join for years. The luxury lifestyle she'd dreamed of sharing with Ethan dissolved into nationwide public shame. I tapped out a quick text to my family attorney. All evidence submitted. File divorce paperwork and forward the financial fraud records to the district attorney's office first thing tomorrow. His reply pinged back within seconds. Received, Clara. We have an ironclad case with zero room for counterclaims. I exhaled a slow, steady breath, setting the champagne flute down on the marble balcony railing. The crisp autumn night air brushed against my bare shoulders, sharp and cleansing. When I stepped away from the balcony and turned to leave the hotel, the bustling glitter of the city's downtown skyline stretched endlessly before me, ordinary and unchanged. The world carried on as normal, but I would never be the same girl who'd hidden behind sheer curtains at 2 a.m., heart shattered to pieces. That broken, lovesick Clara had died the second I watched Ethan kiss Chloe and laugh at how pathetic I was. The woman walking out of this gala tonight was free. No more blind devotion, no more self-sacrifice for a man who never deserved an ounce of my care. I unlocked my phone and scrolled through the endless stream of cruel, taunting texts Chloe had sent me over the past weeks. I read the final message she'd sent that morning one last time. Once tonight's gala wraps up, Ethan will dump you publicly. You'll just be the laughable ex-wife no one remembers. My thumb hovered over the delete button for a beat, then pressed down without hesitation, erasing every bitter word for good. I was never the joke they'd mock me for being. They were the ones who'd gambled everything on a hollow, greedy scheme and lost every single thing. The cool night wind swept the hem of my black silk gown around my calves as I walked toward my waiting town car, head held high. No man would ever manipulate my heart or exploit my family's power ever again. From this night forward, I lived only for myself.